Dr. Moore, I want to welcome all of you. Special welcome to our board members as well. My name is Christy Hatch, and I'm going to be the moderator for tonight's setting. In accordance to the Alabama School Choice and Student Opportunity Act, when evaluating and reviewing charter applications, authorizers shall provide an opportunity in a public forum for local residents to learn about and provide input on each application. Montgomery Public Schools has received an application from the Montgomery Education Foundation that proposes the conversion of Davis Elementary, Nixon Elementary School, and Bell McGrath Middle School. Tonight, we are providing for an opportunity for a representative of Montgomery Education Foundation to offer information about the proposed plan that they submitted. After sharing this information, citizens will have an opportunity to provide their thoughts on charter schools or on the proposed plan, whether in support or in opposition. This will not be a time for questions and answers. It is a time for citizen comments only. In order to afford you with the opportunity to ask questions, you will find green index cards on the tables. If you have a question, please write your question along with your contact information on these cards and leave them in the basket that you see on the stage. And there are also extra cards beside the basket as well. Someone will reach out to you in a timely manner with a response to your question. If you don't wish to leave your questions on the card provided, you may contact the Montgomery Education Foundation at 334-647-1700, or you may email the MPS School Board at parentinfo@mps.k12.al.us with your questions. At this time, I'm going to turn the agenda over to a representative from Montgomery Education Foundation.
Good afternoon, or good evening, rather. First of all, thank everybody. I want to thank everyone for coming out. You could be anywhere else in Montgomery, doing anything else with your evening, but you're taking time out because you care about public education and you want to hear the facts about what this proposed initiative is all about. So, first of all, thank you for that, for taking that time out to do this. You are as interested in this topic as any of us are. Anyone in a leadership position or this organization that's put forth this initiative. This is about you all, your families, your children, and our community. All right, and so what I want to share with you all tonight, first of all, my name is Justin Hampton. I work with Montgomery Education Foundation, and for the past year, I've been involved with this initiative, with having conversation back and forth with Montgomery Public School System, with their leadership, and talking about this initiative. And what I've learned over the course of the past year is simply what I want to share with you all. Because as this initiative unfolded for me, I likely was as skeptical as many people in this room are today. I likely had as many concerns as many people sitting in these seats have today. And what I had to do was get the facts, to dig in deep, do exactly what you're doing now, put myself in a position where I could hear what was really going on, and then make a determination about whether or not I would be supportive or not. And as I did that, as I got those facts, I became not only supportive, but an advocate of what I believe will be something transformative for every child and every family that is zoned to this school, period. And so I want to share with you all those facts. And because it is a little bit complicated at points, I'm going to go slow, I'm going to walk through it, and I'm going to share every piece so that everyone walks out of this room with understanding, whether you're supportive or not. Is that okay? That's okay. Thank you. Go to the next slide, please. All right, so who is MEF? And I'm going to start at the beginning because a lot of people don't really know about the organization. And the big question that comes up initially is, who are these folks trying to do this work? Well, Montgomery Education Foundation has been in support of public education for over 12 years. And our initiatives are known in 4 major ways around the city, things that have been in operation just as long as the organization has been around, and those things have continued to have impact and growth in public education across Montgomery. One of those things, or 4 of them, the Reading on Wheels program, which you may have heard of, which is a mobile library that goes to 18 different sites around the city, doing a literacy initiative to increase literacy around Montgomery County. Another initiative is Network Nights. That's where we go to schools and connect resources to the community and the questions that arise in settings like this, connect those questions and those concerns to resources. That's a community initiative. Could you go to the next one? Starbase is an initiative that we have in conjunction with the Department of Defense, where we introduce over 2,000 fifth graders annually to a STEM education. STEM is science, technology, engineering, and math. So we introduce them to these concepts through forensics, through robotics, through earth science. And they're engaged in this, hopefully leaving that with a curiosity that propels them into wondering what they can do in that environment. A STEM initiative. Another initiative is Brain Forest, which essentially is what I would equate to a summer school, where students are engaged in programming that is designed to mitigate summer learning loss. Meaning, when a kid gets out of school in May and they go back to school in August, if they've been sitting around, then they're going to actually lose some of the progress that they've made up to that point. So this program was designed for that, designed to mitigate it. And what we found was our statistics showed that not only was learning loss mitigated, but students gained 2 to 3 months within a 5-week period. Now, why am I telling you all that? Because the programs that Montgomery Education Foundation has implemented not only are impactful, they are specifically aimed at Montgomery Public School children. Every student in Brain Forest is MPS. The students that are served through the literacy initiative are MPS. And so these programs not only are impactful, but they grow. And so that added, for me personally, a layer of credibility to an organization that would raise their hand when Montgomery Public Schools made what's called an RFP, a request for proposals, to say, is there an organization out there that would be willing to take on this work of conversion? And MEF, having done these works, had a level of credibility that at least made me more curious as to what that initiative could be like. Next slide, please. And so what is that initiative? How many people have heard of Lead Academy? The new charter school that's out, right? Okay. Oftentimes we get confused with that. People walk up to me and say, how's Lead Academy? I don't have anything to do with that. Now, what they're doing is different than the initiative that we are doing. Theirs is a startup. Ours is a conversion. Meaning a startup finds its own building, it has a lottery to determine what students attend the school, and it's open to all those who apply through that lottery. Our initiative is specifically designed for the students in this community, for the students zoned to this school. So no matter what happens, no matter what improvements are made, no matter how great the programming gets, every student in this zone neighborhood still has access no matter what. All right? So where are we at in that process? About a year ago, folk knew that we had applied to MPS. We had some challenges getting our application approved and some challenges getting to the point of starting up the programming. And we came to a pause, all right? So since then, we've revisited, we've redone our application, we've reapplied to a new request for proposals, and that's where we stand now, and that's why we're having this conversation, so that the community understands exactly what this proposal is all about. That proposal then, if accepted, then we have to go through contract negotiations with MPS. The contracts just simply state exactly what's going to be provided through this partnership. What does MEF provide and what does MPS provide? So it's all clear, it's all laid out, and there's no impropriety because it's all very clear. After that happens, here's the important part. Once a contract is secured, then we have the obligation to then secure what's called an education service provider. Meaning, this work is a very difficult work. Running a school is a very difficult work. The challenges that we face on a day-to-day basis in our classrooms, in our communities, the things that students inherently bring in the classroom with them based on the context that they are being raised in, the context that they're dealing with, are very difficult challenges. Oftentimes, they can seem insurmountable. However, there are folk that have won that battle before. There are folk who have victory in those same circumstances. Those people might be in Memphis, they might be in Chattanooga, they might be in Baton Rouge, but they have started and run charter schools in very similar contexts to what we're dealing with and had extreme levels of success. Those are education service providers that we would recruit to come and do the work. They come in with their strategy, they come in with their formula, they come in with this track record of success and implement it in these schools where we are currently seeing very little of it. Once that service provider is secured, once they agree to the terms of the contract, once they visited here, once the community has had an opportunity to meet them, to speak with them, to vet them according to a number of things, including cultural competency. Do you understand the community you're coming to work in? Do you have familiarity? Will you help impart ideals that improve and build up self-esteem and self-identity? And we are comfortable with that scenario? Then we can determine when school opening will begin. Right? Right now, we're slated for fall 2020. The sooner we get the service provider, the sooner we can implement that timeline, and the sooner we can see the changes begin to happen. So, let's get to the nuts and bolts of it. How does it all work? How does it roll out? How does it impact all of us who are involved? 3 schools are part of this conversion. E.D. Nixon, Davis Elementary, and Bellingraph Middle School. These schools create what's called a feeder pattern. So why 3 schools? Why these 3 schools? These 3 schools feed into each other. The 2 elementaries all feed into the middle school, and you have what will become a continuous pipeline from pre-K, honestly, to 8th grade that creates a continuum of high-quality education that's never broken. So a child that enters into E.D. Nixon in kindergarten will have the same environment, the same culture, the same context of learning as they progress all the way through the 8th grade. And that not only allows for them to have a continuum of high-quality education, it also allows for us to have a true analysis of, is this plan workable? Does this actually produce the sort of results we believe it does when a child is only exposed to this, when they only have access to what we believe is high quality? MPS funding, these last 2 we're going to expound on those, and I'm going to expound on those a little bit more. MPS funding and access to services for students in the school zone stays the same essentially. And we have an obligated mandate for improvement based upon our contract. So contractually, we have to get better over the course of a 5-year period, or we lose the opportunity to continue the work. All right, so access for all zone students, I touched on this point. So someone brought up in conversation, eventually the school zones are going to change. No. First of all, the school zones cannot adjust during the 5-year contractual period. All right? We cannot change the school zone. MPS cannot change the school zone. And if you think about the repercussions of that, if we even thought about doing that, we'd have to take a whole lot of adjustment for kids to go to another school and go here, because it's not a one-off decision that wouldn't be made in the first place. School zones will not change. The access to these schools will remain accessible to the students and families who are here. Okay? As well as any services that are being provided currently. If a student has special needs, if a student needs support in ways that are currently being provided by MPS, those same services and provisions are provided continuously through this conversion process. So a lot of things, a lot of things will remain the same. So we're going to talk about things that remain constant, because there are some things about what's currently being provided to our students that absolutely should not change right now. They absolutely should not change, okay? Because they're providing services that are not only adequate in many ways, but are essential to maintain the sort of environment necessary to see the results we want to see. All right? Next. Okay. So, funding. Money stays in MPS schools, meaning there's a lot of concern around funding leaving the system. People say charter schools take money out of MPS. Well, the funding model for how this school will be funded remains the same as how it's currently funded. Schools are funded on a per student basis, a per student allocation. That allocation remains the same. In fact, we actually receive slightly less. Because of all the accountability that's necessary to run this, we have to pay an administrative fee to MPS in order to oversee all of these things that we're doing to ensure we're doing it the right way, to ensure we're being financially responsible, that the environment is what it needs to be, that we're being making strides academically. There has to be someone within MPS that can oversee that process. And we have to pay an administrative fee for that. So actually, the schools in that funding model get slightly less than what they do normally. However, again, services continue. Facilities, maintenance, support staff, busing, those things remain the same. Next slide, please. So what's different? And what do I expect to be different? Because I had to buy in just like I'm asking others to consider buying into the process. One, when community buy-in occurs, it's when people believe in something, right? Right now, we have students fleeing the system. We have students going to Pike Road. We have students going to Prattville. We have students going to Auburn. People are currently buying into something else. When the charter school opened, Lead Academy opened, and this is not to say anything about them. I don't know what quality of service is being provided. They're great, good, or mediocre. I have no idea. What I do know is the public bought in. What I do know is they had 300-something slots and over 1,000 people applied. So what I do know is people are looking for a way to opt into something that they can have hope and belief in, and that's coming, right? Not just in this initiative, I think it's coming in the traditional programs as well, but particularly in this, it shows that when there's ingenuity and innovation, families will buy in. So, what happens when a family opts in? What happens when the school population increases? We talked about funding, we talked about per student funding. Would per student funding increase? Would the school have more resources and more students that came back? I remember a time we had portables at the school when I was growing up because it was so overpopulated. And I'm not saying that's the aim, I'm saying that people, I believe, will buy into innovation. When they see something different, when they believe in what they hear, they'll buy in. And improvement begets improvement. That means as the school gets better, more people buy in. And the school continues to improve along those lines. Next slide, please. All right, teacher support. So now we're getting to what happens to those who currently work in the building or who decide to apply to be teachers at the school. First of all, teachers receive increased support through professional development. So once a week, half days are offered, not offered, but mandated through our application for increased teacher planning time, for collaboration across grades, across disciplines to say, okay, what's going on with Johnny in your classroom? What's going on in your classroom? Let's have a conversation about what's working and what's not, and be able to change our instructional technique on a week-by-week basis to allow us to have quick improvements in the culture of the school. That's instructional best practices. That's emotional and social support to understand how to meet those challenges we were talking about earlier. University partnerships are already in conversation to go back to having student teachers in the classroom to add those supports that teachers desperately need on a day-by-day basis. Teachers in the school have first right of hire. That means when the service provider we talked about, that successful organization, comes and has their hiring practices in place, then the teachers in the school are the first ones to receive the opportunity to apply and be interviewed for the school. Teachers who remain at the school retain all benefits currently offered through MPS. That's health insurance, retirement, with the exception of tenure. Next slide, please. Support staff remain. So all support staff, whether custodian, food service, maintenance, all positions and salaries associated with those remain determined by MPS, and they remain employees of MPS with the same benefits currently being offered by MPS. Next slide, please. So with all that said, the output of the school is being held to an extremely high level of accountability. All right. So currently, we can talk about the statistics and the academic performance of the schools that we're talking about converting, talking about partnering on a conversion with. And the academic performance and the goals that we are obligated to reach are lofty, but doable, and we're held accountable to those standards. As I stated earlier, over a 5-year period, we have to dramatically improve academic outputs, we have to dramatically improve a number of things, and remain accountable to MPS. Meaning, are we governing ourselves financially? Is our board functioning the way it should? And so this level of evaluation is very, very stringent, and in many ways, it is much more deep than what is currently in place and accountable to other schools. Meaning, every year we're held accountable to the same standard as other schools. Meaning, how do you evaluate what's going on in this particular environment, right? Is it apples to apples? Yes. Because we're held to the standard of the state report card. So the public will have an opportunity to evaluate what's going on in the schools the same way you're issued a report card currently for each school. You'll be issued a report card and a grading scale for what's going on here as well, and be able to evaluate what's happening. Next slide, please. Now, what makes this school unique is that there is an autonomous board for these 3 schools. What does that mean? That means that the ability to make decisions on a day-to-day basis for the challenges being faced in this school, in Nixon, in Davis, are able to be made based on people that are closely connected to the school. When you have 47, is it 47 schools you are? 50? When you have 50 schools to manage, a policy decision affects 50 schools. It's very difficult to analyze the things going on in one particular location and make decisions that are singularly designed to impact those students and families. In a situation where you have an autonomous board, you can then make decisions among that board that impact the families and the children in that community based on the challenges they're dealing with. That's the major difference between charter and anything else. Charter gives that autonomy to make those decisions. In our case, our board consists of 20% parent representation. Meaning if we have 5 board members, one of them is going to be a parent minimum. 20% board representation by parent. That is very, very important, not just to check a box, but because parents have insight into the challenges their kids are dealing with and need to be able to speak into them. Next slide, please. Community engagement. So this is not something that begins when the school starts. Community engagement is something that's ongoing right now. This is community engagement. Community engagement is parent-teacher organizations that are developed once the education service provider comes and begins to implement their strategy. Okay, community engagement is ongoing. These are things that we've been doing for the past year and beyond through meeting with different organizations, through having these conversations, through the media, through radio. So our attempt has been to disseminate the information in a way that people can understand and then can ask the questions they need to ask and come to an understanding of what this is all about. Because the majority of the conversations that I'm having typically are centered around questions that are rooted in misinformation oftentimes. People say, you know what, I heard it's going to be like this. Or I think it's going to be like somebody told me. Okay? And what our community engagement strategies are not a one-way information dissemination. They are designed to be a two-way conversation. That's why we got question cards on the table. That's why we have to go back and research and understand what is the community saying. Because it's a partnership. If schools are not partnerships between the community and those running the schools, they don't work. Next slide, please. All right, so where are we? As I talked about, we applied this year to a current request for proposals. We're in the process of seeing if that application will be approved. Should that application be approved, again, the contract comes. Contract comes, we can go and secure this service provider. And what we're essentially looking to do, quite frankly, is have a transformational experience in these schools for these children, period. Because at the end of the day, our children have to be educated to the point where they can compete in a world where their education is just as strong as anything that's being gained at Trinity, St. James, wherever else, and be able to apply to the college of their choice or enter into the career of their choice in a competitive way where they can step out into the world and be as successful as anyone else. And I don't know about y'all, but I don't think that's currently what's going on. And that's not the fault of any one individual, that's not the fault of any one group, but that's just the current state of things. And if there's an initiative that can transform those opportunities and create that opportunity, then I'm in support of that. And what I've seen about particular initiatives like this, when they stay focused on the neighborhood, when access remains available to the children and the families of the community, the entire community begins to change. Because people want to be in the community in order to gain access to the school. But the key is keeping access for those who are currently there. And this initiative does just that. So as we're out seeking and interviewing and vetting these quality service providers that are hitting home runs in communities just like this, that's what we're hoping will happen for our children and families right here. So I know people have their questions and concerns, but I feel like everybody in this room wants the same thing at the end of the day for the kids who attend these schools. I do. My kids are zoned to ENEC. That's the school I hope to send my 5- and 3-year-old son to. And I want them to have the same opportunities that my peers have, that are sending their kids elsewhere and having other options. I want our children to have the same options that they do. And I truly, truly believe that this does that. If you have any questions, if you want any additional information, here is our website and our office number. Feel free to email me directly. I'll respond to whatever question you have, whatever concern you have. I'll sit down with you one-on-one. You want to have a conversation about it to hear more. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
We're going to next move on to the citizen comment section of the evening. And I'm going to read the rules and procedures for participation. Citizens may sign up for comments at the public forum. A sign-in sheet for citizen comments will be available 30 minutes before the forum begins and will be removed at 6 o'clock. Once it is removed, there will not be an opportunity to add any names. Individual citizen comments may not exceed 3 minutes. A total of 45 minutes are allotted for all citizen comments. If the number of speakers exceeds this time limit, citizens will speak on a first-come basis. Communication must be respectful. Discussing specific student or employee matters will not be allowed. This forum is not a time for questions and answers, but rather an opportunity for participants to provide their thoughts on charter schools in support or opposition. The moderator has full authority to terminate the remarks of any person whose comments contain personal attacks, exceed the time limit, or are otherwise inappropriate. A speaker may be considered disruptive who continues to speak when their allotted time has ended, when asked to stop speaking by the moderator, or is otherwise inappropriate. If a person fails to comply when asked to terminate comments, he or she will be escorted to their seat, out of the school building and/or off NPS property, depending on the level of disruption. The moderator reserves the right to remove all disruptive visitors from the meetings. Thank you for participating in the meeting. So I have the sign-in sheet, and we'll just go down, and I think I can read most of the handwriting. But first we have Claire Shavern, and we have the microphone set up right over here. And Mr. Salter is going to start the 3-minute time.
Hello, my name is Claire Sherman. I work with the Southern Poverty Law Center. I just wanted to raise 2 concerns this evening. I do appreciate the opportunity to be here and to have this meeting to voice concerns. But I did want to raise that I spent some time this afternoon searching for Montgomery Education Foundation's application to Montgomery Public Schools to open these conversion schools, and I couldn't find that online. To the extent that the board is interested in receiving meaningful feedback from the public, I think it's very important for the public to be able to read that application and see in detail detail exactly what Montgomery Education Foundation is proposing in its plan. To ask people to rely on the summary that Montgomery Education Foundation has chosen to present tonight is insufficient to the extent that the board really is concerned with receiving detailed feedback from the community on the foundation's proposal. Secondly, as I understand it, I know Mr. Hampton talked for a moment about funding. As I understand it, the Montgomery Board of Education is paid by the taxpayers to oversee public schools within the district. If Montgomery Education Foundation's application is also approved, that means that Montgomery Education Foundation would also be paid to oversee 3 particular public schools within the district. To the extent that Montgomery Education Foundation is just duplicating the role that the Montgomery Board of Education is already tasked with and paid for, that strikes me as very wasteful. And so the only plausible reason I can see for Montgomery Public Schools to lose funding in order for the Montgomery Education Foundation to oversee these schools would be that if MEF can do something extremely differently than what the board can do. And so to the extent that that's true, I would hope that the MEF application details that in great detail. But to the extent that the board is looking for ways to change the daily operations of its school system, I would encourage the board to consider other evidence-based models, such as community schools. Community schools would leverage existing resources as opposed to siphoning resources from the district. Studies find that every $1 invested in a community school strategy can result in up to a $15 return in the community. So this kind of model would likely diversify funding for services within the school district to support our students. And to the extent that the board is interested in receiving more information about community schools, I'd be happy to provide that. Thank you.
Okay, next up we have Pastor Janelle Brown.
I don't know why you mumble when you call my name, because I'm put the sauce on the salt. I got 100-some thousand people following me on social media, so I like to go live and use it, and then more people just tuning in on here than inside of here. The person that represented you all that just said, I want you all to catch what just said. Bellegraph, E.B. Nixon, and Davis, historical black schools on the west side of Montgomery. You can't tell me not one parent on the west side of town, and I will go to the bank tomorrow and pay $1,000 that move their child to a school in Prattville or in Pike Road. That's a lie. We don't want you coming over here to the west side, experiment on our kids, number one. Okay? There's a problem in the Montgomery public school system, and it's not the kids, it's the folks that claim to represent the kids, and they're the folks who need to vote out next year that sit there on the Montgomery County Board of Education. The kids are not the problem. The teachers, the principal, the resources, and the funding. The state legislature just passed a bill for you all to go build a school anywhere you want to, but you want to come to the west side of town. Montgomery, Alabama is majority black, except for now. About to have the first black mayor next month. You can't tell me that black kids are going to Pike Road, Prattville, and all the other schools. No, it is those colonizer kids that going on outside the school system, and y'all need a plan to get them back in the school system because Montgomery County is too black for their child. Let's just be real. Now I know some of y'all don't like it, and you're going to talk about it when I walk out of the door. When I get to talk, I like to go. I don't want to keep on playing around. See, I don't play. I'm a real person. I see the problems every single day. How are you going to change the kids if you can't change the people that represent the kids? These kids need real leaders and real solutions. put a band-aid on every problem that happened in the city of Montgomery, Alabama, and in the county of Montgomery. Black kids ain't going to no Pike Road. You can say that for somebody else. I don't know where you got that from. I don't know not one child in Gills Village or Ridgecrest is going to Pike Road. Because number one, a lot of them ain't got transportation.
Time.
Thank you.
Next on our list is Lorenza Glover.
Good evening. I just want to say one thing. I've been listening about charter schools and magnet schools and public schools. One of the things that disturbs me is that we have this image that our children are failing. We call it failing schools. My child graduated from the year 2018. My daughter from DJ Devil Magnet in 2012. I told my children there's no such thing as a failing school. Because if you put that in your mind, if I said, if a man thinks in his heart, that's the way he is. So you don't even think that you're a failure. Why would we want to call our children failure just because they're of a test? I told my children, hey, you're on a progressive school list. We need to change that image. No longer are we failing schools. If we don't do well on a test, our job, we want our children to do what? To progress. So I make a nomination. We start calling all these schools failures. If they're not doing well, put them on a progressive school list. Because you can't go, if you have a mindset that you're a failure, that's part of that right there. I'm a failure. No, you're not a failure. I told my children, I don't care what they say, because the greatest God created is the family. And if you want your children to do well, my man, to do well, if you as a father and mother bring them up and teach them in the right way, teach them how to think well, they'll do well. Because the school, I love our schools, all the schools. Even if you bring one here, I want all the schools fail. Don't come and say we're going to bring a child to save to go to school. It's not going to save it. It's not. Because you got the same children, we got to change the mindset of all of us. There's no such thing as a failing school. It's not. We got to change with that negative mindset. It's got to go. And I don't know who started that statement. I think it was one man. I'm the one man now. Let's stop calling our schools failures. They're on a progressive school and they're getting better. Amen.
Okay, next on our list is Athena Hargrove.
Hello, my name is Athena Hargrove. I'm 12 years old, 7th grade. The one thing I know about Bellingraph is that it's a perfect school for me and needs to stay the same for me. I started here from 6th grade to 8th grade. I'm going to be here next year. So what I think of Bellingraph is it's a perfect school. It has beautiful teachers and perfect teachers who are really smart and do their math and reading English and everything. And one of the things I think of Bellingraph is that when the students are like me, the students, they are very intelligent and smart, and we need to keep it that way for not to charter schools. Charter schools are going to mess up our school because when we have charter schools, it's going to fire the other teachers who are really smart and intelligent and who are beautiful and handsome. And I want to tell that everybody who goes, like every teacher who goes to Bellingraph and every student who goes to Bellingraph that's here right now, I want to tell them that they are really smart. We don't need charter schools to run over us because we are really smart how we are, and we don't need other schools schools that are not intelligent, just like us. So why would we have just Edie, Nixon, Davis, and Dungraff? Is it just because of our color? It doesn't make any sense just because I think it's our color. That's it. But what about the other schools? That doesn't make any sense. I really think it's the color of our skin, black. It doesn't matter the color of our skin. It matters how we are intelligent, how we act, and how we encourage each other. Thank you. Now, I always on to my own beautiful principal here, Miss Floyd.
She's a tough act to follow. Okay, next we have Dantrell Franklin.
Good afternoon. My name is Dantrell Franklin, and I am a 7th grader here at Bellingham Middle School. To me, I would like my school to stay the same because my teachers are nice. They teach really well. My classes are fun. But the way the teachers teach could be changed a little bit so the kids can get the lesson and they can pass the test. To me, I think the kids are actually smart. They just act up because they want to teach. And I think if the teachers push them a little bit, then they can actually see in their classes and everybody can have all A's. And there won't be no need for charters. There won't be no need for private schools. They can all use traditional American schools. And I think that the way the kids' mindset is that they come to school because they have to, not because they want to or they need to. It's because they have to, so they get an education and a certain job that they want. But to me, you come to school to learn, but you can also have fun in school if you know what you're doing and you get it. So I think demograph, Davis, and EPB should all stay the same because the teachers in the school do it. Thank you.
Next is Lily Welch.
I'm Willie Welch. I'm the pastor of a local church here, and I'm a great supporter of Montgomery Public School System. I'm asking our board members to continue to stay strong and do what you did over the last time and to vote this proposal down when it comes your way. We keep fighting the same fights. When they put the rules and procedures in place for this public forum, they put them in place without us being able to ask them questions. And then they say they want to represent 1,000 students, and then they only allow for 15 people to speak at the forum. That makes good sense. I'm asking that we don't drink the Kool-Aid and that we work on what we already got working. Going back to our first public speaker, we had Davis set up as a community school. Our police chief, White, wrote grants and got funding for it. And then the state takeover came in and took those funds and did what they wanted to do with those funds. So I'm asking you, don't buy the Kool-Aid board members, because if you approve this, then you're selling our students out. That's my opinion.
Next is Larry Lee.
afternoon. A year ago at this time, I was on the Montgomery School Board for a short while, 3 months. Enjoyed it, but one of the things that I was real interested in, and I'm like, Willie, I'm dismayed that we're having a public meeting, but we can't ask questions. And how in the world do you have an exchange of ideas if the people here can't ask questions? You said we're to come and learn about charter schools. Well, we've got questions about charter schools, but we can't ask those questions. And we've been told we're dealing with facts. But all the facts are generated by the Montgomery Education Foundation. And I don't have a problem with them, but I would point out, in one of your sheets here, it says that 600 kids a year leave MPS. Well, I got news for you. They're leaving every school system in the state. If you go look at the records between 2018 and 2019 of the 137 school systems in Alabama, 97 of them lost enrollment. Mountain Brook lost enrollment. Are kids in Mountain Brook going somewhere else for a better school? I find that hard to believe. But I'm real disappointed nobody can ask any questions. The question that I would like to ask, and I asked it, Christy and I had a lot of conversation. My question is the Montgomery public school system a real live charter school authorized? Because I don't think they are. And here's why I say that. When the charter school law was passed in 2015, shortly thereafter, the Montgomery School Board voted, Robert Porterfield was on the board then, some others here, voted to become an authorizer. Christy was working on an application. It's a very intensive process. The application went into the state and it came back because it was not completed. In that interim, the school board decided we don't want to be an authorizer. And nothing was ever done, and the application was not completed unless something's happened in the interim, Christy. And the application, I'm told, says pending. Well, if it's pending, you ain't an authorizer. That's like me going to the bank and asking for $1,000, and he hands me some notation and says it's pending. But as long as it's pending, I ain't getting my $1,000. So the first question that I would like to ask, and somebody needs to answer, are we really doing legal business? Thank you.
You already know who's next. Robert Porterfield.
Good afternoon. I'm Robert Porterfield, former board member of Montgomery Public Schools. It is my understanding, and I read this in the paper, news outlet, and everything else, that the main role of the Charter Commission is to oversee day-to-day operations and curriculum. Well, if that's the case, it implies to me that the superintendent and staff, along with the State Department now, is not doing a satisfactory job of day-to-day operations or curriculum. Now, certainly I understand that this is not a time for questions and answers, but there are a number of questions needs to be asked and a number of answers that we need to receive in here. I didn't hear anything about the responsibility for hiring or terminating. I didn't hear anything about the accountability or fiduciary responsibility for the conversion charters. I didn't hear anything about the award of contracts, what it's going to be for maintenance and daily operations. I was looking to hear something about policies for the employees and how that would differ from what's already in place. I was also looking for policies and discipline for our children with respect to discipline and attendance for our students, and what would that look like? Haven't seen anything. And I want to know something about your mission statement. It seems so it's the same as Montgomery Public Schools mission statement. As I looked on the overhead here, And what academic programs that you have that are planned to implement that differs from what MPS is already doing? And how will you hold parents accountable for students' attendance and academic performance? Didn't hear anything about that. The only role that Charlotte will have, as far as I can see, is daily oversight. Then if that is your job, then how's your daily oversight is going to be different than what the board is already doing. Now, I don't have a problem with the Montgomery Education Foundation forming a charter school. I do have a problem, though, with the Montgomery Educational Foundation wanting to take schools that are already been purchased by the community and convert it to a charter school. Oh, the young man got up and he said, well, we always hear it that these schools are failing. We don't have failing schools. I appreciate you for saying that. But in order to divert funds, in order to have choice schools, in order to have charter schools, then they have to do something to smear public education in order to get these programs in place. That's just plain. That's the plan. So if you continue to do that, you must understand and go back to early American education. If you do your research, you'll find that
Okay, last, I believe this is Carl Thompson.
Good evening. How's everyone doing? We know Montgomery is a place for the birth of civil rights and the cradle of the Confederacy. We know that racial tension is more heightened at this time in the country. We know that the disparity of funding, because when you talk about high growth and other schools, those schools are well funded. Same thing, private school. If the economics is there, those schools will be well funded. If parent involvement is there, it's going to be well funded. If people are involved. Now I come from Montgomery, we've been all over town, played ball, we have better. But here's some of the things that's going on that we have to decide to deal with. Because a lot of time, and we might well know it, a lot of time, whites, Caucasians are very undereducated concerning African American history. Because a lot of times you see slavery and things like that on television. That's a picture, a lot of times, of who we might be, even in today's time. Because we don't educate ourselves properly. But here's some of the things I like to say. Who are the funding stakeholders? Who is funding this? Montgomery County education people, foundation. Who does it consist of? Is it big business owners? Is it private investors? Who does it consist of? Another one of the things. Racial disparity based on income. Will it exist? Yes, because in this area, medium incomes are not very high. But people in there fighting for what they believe in. But that's not enough. You need money. You need a fight that says you care. You need to stand up and be accounted for. Parents need to be involved. A lot of parents, and a lot of times, are working so that limit they are involved. That's not an excuse, but it happens. Okay? Another thing, their board members poll their voters. That each one of the 9 districts, did they poll their voters? Did you get a vote from them? Just like we do at voting time. That's what I would suggest. Do that. Okay? Another thing, is this the same system with less local accountability? Is the school board going to have authority over this organization? Is it going to be totally separate? Self-governed? Is it being created to be self-governed? Another thing, who has the oversight? With Montgomery County? Superintendent? The board? Who is going to have oversight over them? Authority said, no, you can't do that. And last but not least, did this community ask for this program? If it's going to help them make better and work together, then we can all be better served. But rest assured, if we want to be positive, black, white, and different, everybody has to come together.
Okay, that covers everyone who has signed up to participate in the citizen comment section. I want to thank everyone for coming out and participating in this event. I want to especially thank the people who signed up to exercise their rights as citizens to comment on the application and the charter schools. Thank you very much. Remember, if you have those questions on the ring cards, put them in the basket.